careful what you're looking at because it might be looking back. You ever feel like you're getting too old for anime? Like that 90s shonen about superpowered high schoolers? It just isn't hitting the way it used to. Well, then I just might have the show for you that stands tall as one of the most mature, compassionate, and atmospheric shows I've ever seen. And that show is
Bartender.
Bartender follows Ryu Sasakura as he serves up both cocktails and wisdom to his patrons, helping them navigate the harsh realities of adult life. Oh, I didn't pay my electric bill. We'll be right back. See, Ryu is an extremely skilled bartender, capable of making what's called the glass of the gods. The perfect cocktail for his customers and their problems right then and there. And as we walk through the smooth jazz and the nighttime city lights of Bartender, I'm going to teach you how to make some of those glasses of gods. Cocktails. So you too can use liquor to cope with your problems. That is a joke. And there's never been a better time to talk about this anime because after 18 years, Bartender is finally getting a sequel, Bartender Glass of Gods. I've said Glass of Gods too many times, it means nothing to me anymore. You can find both the original and Glass of Gods on Crunchyroll, so if I spark your interest, give the video a like and subscribe, and give these two shows a watch. Now let's get into it. Coping with your problems through alcohol is actually pretty opposite to the message of the show. Which put me at ease, because to be honest, the premise of the show had me a little bit iffy. I was afraid that Ryu would be serving up these magical drinks that would just make things happen. Kind of like how the food in Food Wars just kind of makes you... well, you know. Ooh. But here, it's not about the booze, it's not about getting drunk, it's about what the drinks mean. Making that customer feel seen and heard. Because they are going through a lot of stuff. This show gets real heavy. It covers love, loss, death, broken families. If you've ever cried about it, it's probably here. And it's kind of amazing how Ryu does this. He listens to the customer while carefully observing them and uses this information to create a cocktail that's a literal representation of what they're going through. Then he can point to that drink and go, you see that? That's you. You're struggling. You are struggling. It's rough. But you're gonna be all right. And that's exactly what he did for a married couple that found themselves growing apart until they had our first cocktail, one of the classics, a Bijou.
Oh my god, I broke it. I broke the glass. I'm so stupid.
While the Bijou is a classic cocktail, Ryu serves it up in a non-traditional way, POUSSE cafe style. This means that you carefully layer each ingredient on top of each other rather than mixing everything together. Now, this is not the easiest thing in the world to do, but I'm gonna try my best, and we'll see how it goes. Now, the reason that Ryu does this has to do with what each of the three ingredients represent. With the name Bijou being the French word for jewel, the sweet vermouth represents rubies, the chartreuse represents emeralds, and the gin, diamonds. And then there's the bitters. There's no gemstone for that, so we don't count those. This has two meanings. The first is to point out that the wife hasn't worn her wedding ring in months, which the husband didn't notice at all. Ooh, damn dude, Jesus. But the second meaning comes when Ryu takes this carefully, beautifully layered drink and mixes it all together in a mixing glass. Oh, I don't want to do it. It's so pretty. Oh well, pour one out for me. And now we add our bitters. When you mix all these together, you no longer have the same vibrant colors of each individual liquor. And that's exactly Ryu's point. A long-term relationship doesn't have the same sparkle that it did when it was new, but despite that, it still gets better with age. Well, most of the time. Just like amber, the color of which we get when we mix all of these liquors together, that starts out as nothing more than tree sap, and with time becomes a precious gem in its own right. At this point, you're either cringing or going, "Aw, I'm the latter." But either way, you gotta respect what the man did. He greased their wheels just enough so that the wife could finally let out all those emotions she's been bottling up, and the husband could reveal the real reason that he's been distant, which I will not tell you. Go watch the show. Now, let's be honest. Relationship problems are never resolved this easily in real life. But that being said, I find it extremely cathartic to see a condensed down version of overcoming a problem that I'm sure anybody who's ever been in a long-term relationship has faced. So with that, let's taste this and see if it can fix my marriage. What I'll say about the Bijou is that it's very chartreuse dominated, because you get the gin on the back end, but the sweet vermouth gets kind of lost in all the herbal notes of the green chartreuse because it's just so strong. It's hitting you like a right punch to the face. It's a good drink. It's a very stiff drink. It's sweet, but it is definitely a stiff drink. So if that sounds good and you are like me and you love the very herbal, slightly licoricey flavor of green chartreuse, this is a great drink. This drink makes me feel fancy. Being an episodic show, it's kind of mind-blowing how much story they managed to fit into each episode, and just how different each of those episodes manages to be. To highlight a few of my favorites, there's a super fun episode about a creative duo who turned to Ryu to help with their creative burnout, an absolute tearjerker about a woman looking to find closure for her grandfather. And man, when you get to the episode about the guy who likes to drink expensive champagne, just be ready. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Now, though the stories of Bartender are episodic, interestingly and kind of abstractly, their characters aren't. You'll see them just living their lives around Ginza where Bartender takes place, or just sitting around talking to each other on the street. And this makes the world feel so lived in and creates this super strong sense of community. Like I could just wave at these people as I walk down the streets of Ginza. However, it's the other way that Bartender uses its characters that makes the show so special. They're often used as what I could only describe as omniscient narrators. They'll help tell the stories of other characters, but not in the sense that they're actually there. It's very ethereal, like a dream where people pop in and out and break the fourth wall to monologue to you, which is so unique, but it definitely caught me off guard at first. It was more than a little bit eerie. But when I realized what was actually going on, I found it to be very comforting. Like when all the past characters gather to watch over Ryu and tell the story of why he's closed the bar that night to honor an old patron who's recently passed on. Just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy, like, oh, they do care. But between this avant-garde storytelling, the fantastic jazz soundtrack, and all of the emotion poured into each episode, pun intended, this show just oozes atmosphere and style. Atmosphere and style that can be enjoyed by anyone. You might think a show about a fancy bar would be a bit pretentious, but it really goes out of its way not to be. Ryu explains that he wants his bar to be a hideout for anyone, even if they don't drink alcohol, where just for a drink or two, they can escape the world outside. To which the customer responds, "Yeah, whatever you say, kid." Apparently he's from New York. Which, I mean, to be fair, all he asked is, why is the door so heavy? And he got an entire philosophy lesson. But it's also the show acknowledging that different things can have different meanings to different people, and you don't see that too often. So, in the spirit of Ryu's inclusivity, let's get started on our first mocktail, the Cinderella. Something that I love about this drink is that it's so flexible. You could buy all the ingredients for this pre-packaged at the store for a super easy drink, but you can also treat it with the same level of quality and care as a fancy Ginza cocktail by using fresh juices like I'm going to do today. But at the end of the day, this drink can kind of meet you where you're at. I love the color. It is just a friggin' Pikachu yellow. Oh wow, that's actually really good. It's just like advanced orange juice. Like you definitely do get the flavor of the orange juice the most. You get it right up front, and then you're hit by the bite from the lemon, and the pineapple is almost like a whisper at the end, just telling you, I'm from the tropics. I would highly recommend this. This is great. Definitely, this exceeded all of my expectations I had for this. Now let's keep shining our spotlight on Ryu, because this is something he never really does for himself. I mean, the man is the main character of the show, and he makes it all about his customers. In fact, we barely learn anything about Ryu the entire length of the show. And this is because Ryu believes a bartender should be formless. Confused by this? Yeah, I was too, but no worries, he elaborates with something that was so obvious, I definitely took it for granted. Most of the time, people don't remember the bartender, they remember the drinks. Though I will definitely remember the bartender at the end of each episode, because he's a real life guy. They got a real bartender to make each episode's drink during the end theme, and it's so good. Especially with how amazing the end theme is, I have never been more happy to watch the end credits of a show. But I'm off on a tangent now. Focus. Focus. Ryu doesn't want to become some flashy bartender who dominates the customer's experience by flipping bottles all over the place. Consequences, I see. Oh, yes. Ryu understands that by shying away from the limelight, he can focus on his customers, figuring out the perfect drink for them and lending them a sympathetic ear that they otherwise just might not have. But I think he says this better than I ever could.
人がお酒を愛します。でも私はお酒を愛する人も愛したい。それでも私はバーテンダーという仕事に出会えてよかったと思う。バーテンダーという職業ではなく、バーテンダーという生き方を選んで。
Oh man, give it up for the bestest boy at all of anime. This also doesn't give you a free pass to go trauma dumping on your bartender. They're people too, unlike Ryu, the benevolent bartending god. But that's never stopped people in the past, so this next one represents all the formless bartenders, kindly listening, but quickly forgotten. It's called the No Name. Now, the No Name was actually created on accident. It was originally an attempt at creating a spiced rum, but instead it ended up falling into a family of cocktails called cigar cocktails. These usually have spirit-forward flavors that can stand up to the strong taste of a cigar, but without overshadowing it. And this one is no exception, as we start with our base spirit of 2 ounces of rum. Dark rum, more specifically. Plantation 5-year is a great rum, so if you're looking for one, this is the one I would recommend. And we'll follow that one up with 1/2 ounce of honey, which is going to be kind of a nightmare to get out of the jigger. This is why we use honey syrup instead of honey, but that ain't what the drink calls for. I'll wait. All day. Now, typically this is the kind of drink that you would stir, not the kind of drink you would usually shake, but in this case, the recipe calls for us to add 1 to 4 cinnamon sticks. I think I'm going to split the difference, I'll do 2, and shake it with the cinnamon sticks to infuse the flavor. Now, I've never done this before, so I don't actually know how much flavor from these is really going to be infused just by shaking it, but we'll find out. And I'm going to break it up a little bit too, just so it has a little bit more surface area to help infuse the flavor. One other important thing to note, the specs don't call for any ice, so we're just going to shake it as is. We're going to have a room temperature drink. In fact, this drink might be so old it even predates ice. Well, you know, like consumer ice, not... Ice has been around forever. Oh wow, that foamed up more than I thought it would. Huh. And I'm going to double strain this just to make sure that we don't end up with any cinnamon chunks in our drink. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not the most impressive looking drink. I shouldn't say this. I know I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. This looks like someone took the most dehydrated whiz in my glass. And now I'm going to taste it? Why do I lead into things like this? Why am I like this? Oh, wow. I mean, it's simple. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is simple. But simple ain't bad. And shaking it with the cinnamon sticks worked. This tastes like cinnamon. Like a cinnamon, honey. What is this? This tastes like something. What is that? It has a lot of flavors of like a honey bun, but better. I could definitely see myself sipping on this and smoking a cigar, looking out on the workers that I don't pay enough as they build my transcontinental railroad. I don't know why I brought up the transcontinental railroad. Too soon. And with that, I invite you to stay for at least a few more drinks because I am releasing an entire series on bartender that I've organized into a playlist down in the description where we make a lot more drinks from the show, especially some of the weirder ones, and talk more about the philosophy behind it. But for today, I'm done talking. Thanks for indulging me in this honestly a very sappy review of Bartender. The show is sappy, I'm sappy, I love it. But with that, I will let you go, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.